All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. It's the October 6th, 2021 Henniker School Board meeting. Do we have any amendments to the agenda tonight?
Taylor Carroll is here to present about action research.
Okay.
And Kim Perosi is here to present about responding to SEL needs in first grade.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Do we have any public comment at the first public comment space? Anybody? We're good. All right. Minutes. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from the September 1st, 2021 school board meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? Any changes that need to be made to that? No? All right. All right. All in favor of adopting those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained?
Can I just add, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
2 more amendments.
Yes, absolutely.
JLCJA actually has a policy also, and, a procedure.
Yes, I'm
So
sorry.
that's not really an amendment, but
Yeah, just an addition. to
addition.
that. Okay.
And then under new business, the ratification of the MOA,
Oh, okay.
MOU.
I'm being waved at to remind everybody to be close to their mics when they're talking.
Okay.
Okay.
And there won't be a Fresh Picks report.
Okay. All right. Easy peasy. Any communications that we need to take up? I don't think I've had any specific communication. Okay. So let's get to the fun stuff. So Taylor and Kim, who would like to go first? Rock, paper, scissors. Who's it going to be? Get it over with. We like having you here, Taylor.
It's talking to a room of kids is fine. It's the adults.
I totally hear you. Just pretend that we're kids.
I'll just pretend.
We're just kids that aged a little.
We are very childlike.
We can be.
Sometimes.
You can put the little moving thing. That's the right angle. Or will that just go in someplace?
Probably need a docking station.
You don't have
Kim
one
can
up
go
there?
first.
Kim can.
Kim's like, woo.
I don't have anything fancy like that to hook up, so I can
All right.
certainly go first.
Is it just the plug that I have in my classroom?
The docking station that you use.
Okay.
All right.
So I decided to talk with you about social emotional learning because it is one of my professional goals for this year. It's one of our school goals, and it's something that I feel like is becoming more and more prevalent as a need every year. Obviously, COVID threw some wrenches in what we normally do. We all thought last year that last year was going to be tough coming back after remote. We weren't sure what we were going to be getting, but the kids came in like sponges. They were starving for that direct instruction and peer learning and all of that. So the social emotional need wasn't as prevalent last year. And we're finding this year, at least in my classroom, and we're seeing it across the first grade, that these kids haven't had a normal school year yet. So in preschool, their year got cut short partway, and then kindergarten, they were able to come in, but it wasn't a typical structure of how their kindergarten classes were run. They were in cohorts, they had lunch in the classroom, separate recess play areas. So I think that a lot of that social emotional need of conflict resolution and how to navigate the school building. There were so many more things that these kids were coming into that was brand new for them. And then we also had, I can't say a record number, but more than usual where students were registering who have never been to school before. So we all have a handful of kids that this is their first experience in school. So that was emotional for them and their families being apart for the full day. So given all of that, typically I always have run my classroom using the responsive classroom approach, and it works very well where the students are part of setting up the classroom, making the rules of the classroom, and it becomes part of their own space, and they take ownership of that because it's important. So doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do is usually our motto in running a classroom that has a climate that is very conducive to learning so that they feel like it's a safe place where they can take risks. And typically starting out really slow and making sure that the focus is on that the first 6 weeks of school has always been challenging because it's starting from scratch every time. But this year it's been really hard because we knew that the kids were in kindergarten, but we're like, what did they do all year? Like they are like in a brand new building like they've never seen before. So we had to backtrack a lot. And I just kept feeling like the emotional piece was really difficult for so many more of my students than I've ever seen before. So given a classroom of 16 students, there was a significant number of kids who are falling apart throughout the day, who couldn't manage their bodies, just were having a really hard time. So a couple of those students actually are White Birch students as well. So I collaborated with the White Birch personnel to see if there was anything that have worked for them in the past where I could help these students to be able to manage their very long school day. And so she shared with me this great resource, which I've been using with my students. So it starts with a little scribble spot, and I'll pass these out so you can see them. But this one talks about all the different emotions that you can have, and then it goes very quickly through what you can do with all your emotions. But then each book in the series focuses on a different emotion, and it talks about how you get that emotion, how you can manage it, and then it talks about strategies towards the end, which we've practiced as a class. And so now the students are starting to use the phrases that we've been hearing in the book, and starting to use. I had a student just the other day who was really, really upset, and no matter what tactic I tried, he just couldn't move on. And so I brought him for a little walk, and we did one of the strategies of you put your spot on your hand and press your, so as we were walking down the hallway, I was doing that to his hand, and we didn't go 10 feet and he was already like calming down. So I'm like, oh, this really works. So it's the first time that I've used it. But when I was talking to the White Birch personnel and she had told me about this, I was like, I'm going to try anything. Like I'll try anything. And I've always done social emotional learning through Responsive Classroom, where we talk about cooperation and empathy and, safety, and of course our acronym of KIND, and that's always been embedded. But this took it another step further, where you're really talking about their feelings and what to do with them. So there's a spot of confidence. And I liked the series because it did both sides of the spectrum of the feelings, like the negative ones and the positive ones. So confidence would be positive, happiness. But then it talked about a spot of sadness and why you might be sad sometimes, a spot of anxiety, a spot of anger, a peaceful spot, and then a spot of love. And this one was really interesting because it talked a lot about how people like to receive love and give love in different ways, and that we're not all the same. So sometimes we just think of, if you love someone, you can hug them, and that's what kids know. But there's lots of other ways. And through all these books, they talk about how your academics can help grow these spots or shrink your spots. So we've been practicing that as we're doing our schoolwork too. So a lot of them talk about like how creativity can grow your confidence spot, and imagination can grow your confidence spot, and writing notes can grow your love spot. So we can incorporate it so easily into the work that we're doing in the classroom. So you can look at it if you want to.
Yes.
You can pass it in a little.
Cool.
I feel like I'm on Shark Tank.
That's funny.
So some of the other literature that I've used in the classroom is Say Something. This is a book about being an upstander. This is another one that is a book about being an upstander, the Pout Pout Fish and the Bully Bully Shark. Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah, it's rhyming, so it's fun to read, and we can talk a lot in the story about predicting. Like, what do you think the fish should do, or what do you think the shark should do? And they can come up with ideas of their own in role playing. If you were the fish, what would you say? If you were the shark, what would you say? This one is Nugget and Fang, which is, again, a really funny story. They're best friends, and the fish goes to school, and all the fish in the school, like a school of fish, get it? They say, like, sharks are bad. And so the peer pressure piece of believing what other people say about someone really comes out in this story. But then in the end, the fish get into trouble, and the shark is actually the one that helps save them. So they all become friends. So it's another really good story of conflict resolution and how to manage what some of your peers might be doing. And then this one is another really good one about just social emotional learning in general. I think it talks about families, and the pictures are really colorful and fun. But it talks about how all families are different. Some families have two moms, some families have two dads, some families have pets, some families look alike, some families don't, some families have adopted children. So it really talks about how it doesn't matter what kind of family you have, that where you live and who you live with is your family, and that's what matters. So it's a really diverse story, and this author has lots of other books that talk about feelings and things of that same nature. So that's some literature that we focus on in the first 6 weeks of school. And then the last piece, which is probably the hardest piece, is making sure to share these ideas with the families so that they know that we're trying to build that bridge from school to home, especially for the kiddos specifically this year that have had trouble with that. Having strategies in place and letting the families know that we are here to have that bridge and that we can help them with things that might get difficult. If packing lunches because your child's picky, what can we do to help support you? Trying to get them to try new things. We can do that through snack time. If they're having a sad moment in the morning, things that we can do to put that strategy into place so that when we meet them here at school, they can make that transition easily, things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you guys have questions for Kim?
Questions?
A suggestion might be to send like a book list home for parents to maybe check out some of these books at home, because we have several of those. And they are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But if other parents know what books you're using, they can also support what you're doing in the classroom as well. I mean, my grandson's in your class, so.
He is?
Yeah.
Who's your grandson?
Connor.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He's so sweet. Oh, I didn't even know that. That's too funny. Well, I hope he's enjoying it.
Yes. Very
Now I
much.
really feel like I'm on the spot.
Well, I was a para here for 24 and a half years. Not at all.
This looks really great. I really am so excited about that work. I love the spot books and the spot strategies. They're really, really, really great. Other questions or comments? Anybody?
The last home connection piece is also through Responsive Classroom. It's a share time that we have. So at the end of every day, our closing meeting is a share time, and there's 3 students assigned to each day that they get to have a share time, so they can bring in a picture or something that they made or something that they found and share it. And that helps build that class community of respect and empathy of, when someone else is talking, we're listening, and then they have a chance to ask questions. So sometimes the questions are not meaningful, or the question has already been answered when the student is presenting and they get really upset. Like, they already told that. So it is a really good skill for speaking and listening, which is part of our standards. And that kind of ties in that home school connection as well.
That's really great. Thank you so much for taking your time, and these are really fun books. I wish we had more time to sit here and look at them, but, you know,
Great job. Thank you so much
Those are
for
awesome.
presenting that.
thank you.
I know, me too.
All right, Miss Carol. Those are fun. I want to look at books. It's so cute. That's a great book.
Don't tell us, we won't notice.
I want to play with these new big boards. They're so fun.
I always wanted, when they had the whiteboards when they first brought them in, I always wanted the parents to be trained how to use
How to
them.
use? I never knew how to use those.
They never took the time to train us because we would have to sub all the time. So we couldn't use
You
them.
can't use it if you don't know how to use. You know, it's not valuable. This seems like it may be more intuitive. Just like a big touch screen.
It is much easier to use
Much
these.
easier?
I could never use the,
Yay.
Is it okay if I stand here?
What? There you go.
Oh, maybe not.
Okay. It's all good. You can stand there. We'll deal.
You'll be okay?
We're fine.
Use your teacher voice. I'll use
Yeah.
my teacher voice. I did an action research project last year on improving steady beat in older students. So this is just kind of a summary of it. There's more details if you want. I can give you the whole presentation and all that, but I'm just going to whip through it. So my focus, I was thinking about why steady beat is important. And there's musical reasons that it's important and non-musical reasons. Steady beat is the foundation of all musical activities. Dance, singing with others, playing an instrument with others or by yourself, understanding the structure of songs, being able to fully enjoy a piece of music. It's also important for non-musical activities. Mr. Colby was telling me about finger tapping in foundations, walking with a steady gait, running, pedaling a bicycle, dribbling a ball. There are studies that show that it can improve reading skills, studies that show that it can help with impulse control, and there are links to those studies if you're interested. And it allows for social connections with others. So there's this theory, let me back up, and I heard it over and over in my undergrad work and also in my grad work, all the stuff on the brain about how your brain gets really sponge-like. You guys are all nodding, you know what I'm talking about. So it'd be like before age 7, it's like absorbing everything. And then it kind of slows down in that absorption. So getting kids to learn these specific like foundational skills before age 7 is really, really important. And that's great information because then we can, I can really work hard on my kindergartners and first graders with learning the steady beat and using their singing voice. However, there's not a lot of talk about what happens after that age. They're kind of like, you'd better teach them before age 7, basically. Let me just make sure I'm in the right presentation. Nope. Here it is.
We went through the long version.
I was starting to go through the long
There you
version,
go.
and I'm just gonna yeah. So that didn't really sit well with me as a K through 8 teacher.
No.
So all of these people, Zoltan Kodai, Edwin Gordon, Rishri Shram, there's all of these people that are like, you'd better teach them steady beat before age 7. There's a quote, here's some Gordon, here's some Shram. So there's this other sort of thing that I kept on hearing from Phyllis Weichert, who was actually a PE teacher that did a ton of work with her students on steady beat. John Feierabend, who's my musical guru, and my mom, that you can learn things with practice. So I kind of took those two things and I designed this action research project after that. So, I'm going to come back to this. So my question was, can I improve steady beat perception and performance for students in grade 3 to 4 with practice? So this is what I did. First, I had to find a way of measuring, since this was an action research project, I had to measure how good the kids were at keeping a steady beat. And there's these two ends of this. There's the internalized perception of steady beat, and then there's their ability to do the steady beat. It's pretty easy to assess whether a person can externalize a steady beat. You just ask them to keep a steady beat, and you watch them, and you record it. Which is what I did. I had them do an activity, and I asked them to march to the beat, and they did that, and I wrote it down. But it's hard to have them demonstrate what's in their head. So this guy, Glenn E. Neerman, did a study in order to develop a test that measured the internal beat perception. And I tried to duplicate this test. It was actually kind of a cool concept. And I'll kind of show you right now how it works. So I'm going to clap my hands 6 times, and I want you to count those 6 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after I stop clapping, I want you to keep counting in your head. And keep counting until I clap my hands again, and then stop on that number. Do you understand?
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see, I'll start again. 1, 2, 6. Anyone want to say what number they counted?
13.
14. So if you got 14, well, that's what I counted. I actually, with this test, I used a metronome, so I was like really exact. So if you had 14, you were like right on. If you were 15, you probably counted a little slow. If you were 13, you counted, or the other way around, a little fast. You know what I mean? And if you counted 7, you didn't understand the rules of the test. So that was the test that I gave the kids. And then I asked myself, I had all this data, I said, how can I get kids to practice steady beat beyond our once-a-week music class? Because once a week, it needed to be more than that. And what I did is I thought about back to my childhood and why I think I'm so good at steady beat, and it's because of what I did on the playground, and that was jump roping. So we started holding music class outside, and I taught them a bunch of different steady beat activities that you can play outside at recess. Some of them were, one of them was this ball bouncing game. You have a ball, and you bounce it. I should have had a video, but I didn't. So it's like 1, 2, 3, O'Leary, 4, 5, 6, O'Leary, 7, 8, 9, O'Leary, 10, O'Leary, I made it. And on O'Leary, you're supposed to pass the ball under your leg. And you can change the words so that you can do it 100 times, 100 different ways, and it's still interesting for you. And there are other games you can do with that song.
I did that all the time when I was a kid.
You know that one, yes. Did you do
Oh, yeah.
10 O'Leary Postman or 10 O'Leary I Made It?
I made it.
Yeah. So another one was this. I actually learned the game on Facebook from another music teacher on Facebook. It's called Want a Cup of Tea, Sir? And you take basically some pantyhose and you shove a tennis ball in and put a baby sock in it, and it makes a foxtail, and you stand against a wall and you hit it back and forth. Has anyone done one of those? And
cool.
this was a want a cup of tea, sir? No, sir. Why, sir? And it's this whole long thing, but the kids really loved it. And then to make it more challenging, every time you'd say the word sir, want a cup of tea, sir, you'd like go between your legs. So there was a lot of replay to this. You could do it, 100 times and for weeks. And it was funny. Jump rope songs we did. We had a little sports car down by the river. Lori Gage would come down and she would join us for these. She used to jump rope, and she taught us one that she did called Pom Pom Pompadour, which I have not found on any websites. It's awesome. It goes, Pom Pom Pompadour, Amy, calling Becky to the door, 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 door. Becky is the one who's having all the fun, so we don't need Amy anymore. And there's jumping in and jumping out. Does anyone know that one? I'm curious. Yeah. So with some help of the paras and some of the classroom teachers who like joining us, we actually taught the kids how to jump in and jump out, which is
Oh, wow.
really cool. And there's also, I think especially with songs that we did when we were kids, there's like a passing down of the culture, the playground culture. We did some rock passing games. This was one from Ghana, and you basically take a rock and you pass it around in a circle while singing, "Oh, wasana sa na na, oh, wasana sa, oh, wasana sa na na, oh, wasana sa," and whoever gets the rock with a crack in it, like in hot potato, that person is out. There are lots of passing games. Down by the banks of the hanky-panky, which is usually one that you clap.
Oh, that one I do know.
But during COVID, we just turned it into a rock passing game, and it was great. And the cool thing is that all of these could be used as a jump rope song. Or kids were making up their own ball bouncing things, which takes me to mixing it up. So once students really got to know these rhymes and games, I noticed that they were naturally starting to use different songs for different activities. For example, many jump ropers liked jumping to "Want a Cup of Tea, Sir?" And I also observed two girls doing a rock passing game to one of the songs that one of the girls knew, and I did get a video, so. Make it big. It's a short video. Let's start it over. Here we go.
Awesome.
So that was like a level 4, right? It's taking what you learn and applying it in another situation. So pleased with that. So looking at the data, whoops. So remember that internalized test with the clapping and counting? The green is the perfect score. This is the pretest. And, so you were supposed to count 127 beats in the entire thing. That's how many beats there were. And if you were a few beats off, you can follow my line of thought. So this, about 8% got a perfect score. About 45% were only 1 to 3 beats off, which is pretty cool. 17% were 4 to 6 beats off. 28% were 7 beats off. I think that quite a few of them were the kids that got a score, were counting 7 every time. Post-test, it's almost the same, except you'll really notice a big difference in the reds. So observations is there's not much of a difference in the pre and post test for students' ability to internalize steady beat. The biggest change was in the number of students who were 7 or more beats off. That number decreased by 10%, and they seemed to have ended up in the 4 to 6 beats off category. And then I do have some of the students didn't fully understand how to do the activity the first time. For example, they didn't understand they were supposed to continue counting during the silences. And there were also a few students who only took the pre-test, or only took the post-test. So then this was what I got for the externalizing beat when I just watched them keep the beat. 26 students could walk to the beat. I'll do percentage. 54% could, 45% couldn't, or were not demonstrating it on that day. Maybe they could, but the post-test is drastically different. And I added another category. The red was cannot keep the beat, and the yellow was close. So these kids were sometimes demonstrating the beat and sometimes not, and I wanted to acknowledge that. So big difference there. And for this one, I actually assessed each student. I said, come over here, do want a cup of tea, sir? And if they weren't able to, if the poem was flustering them, if they weren't able to remember the words, I just said count 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's the exact same thing. Observations, I think I just went over that. And this is a picture of a couple kids doing that ball and sock thing. So the results, can I improve steady beat perception and performance for students in grades 3 and 4 with practice? Yes, I think I can.
Yay.
So this is great news because students who did not learn steady beat by age 7 can still learn to keep a beat. Also, I know what type of activities improve steady beat perception and performance for 3rd and 4th graders. And 3rd and 4th graders love the types of activities that will help them improve the steady beat. My next steps are I do plan to start early, or I did plan to start early, teach playground beat games at the start of the year, which I've been doing since the start of the year. Provide jump ropes and ball and socks for playground baskets. The kids know that they can come to the music room and borrow my jump ropes and bring it out to recess, and they've been doing that, which is great. We've got to get some for the playground, but in the meantime, that works. Assess internal. This was a very valuable tool for me for identifying the needs of students, so I think I will continue doing that kind of test. Curate, teach songs from other cultures, and also look for more from our community. Assess external. I feel like I needed a better way of finding that that externalized beat because there was such a difference. I'm like, I need to just find something better for that. And connect well-known playground games with musical making, which brings me to my last slide. Connection between steady beat and music making. I wonder if I can make this big. There we go. So this is taking one a cup of tea, sir, and then taking it to that last step of playing it on instruments. Thinking about it. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, ready, go. One a cup of tea, sir.
That's awesome. Yay! That was amazing. Do you guys have questions for Taylor?
No, just high praise.
High praise, and I love it. And can we come to recess? That looks really fun.
So one of the things, I had the advantage of seeing this last year and was very, very impressed, but I haven't even had a chance to talk to Taylor about this. But one of the things that is really cool about this, that is even bigger than what she presented, is there's a really tight connection to early literacy in everything that she is showing us here. And one of the things I talk about when I talk to people about dyslexia is an example of non-academic areas that give us an insight into the dyslexic learner. And one of those things is like not being able to clap to a beat. And so I always joke when my daughter and I go to church, we don't clap, right? Like the music plays and we sing along totally off key, but we don't clap because we're never in sync with the beat. And I talk about how oftentimes there's things that are happening in unified arts classrooms that are an insight into the neural development of children that tell us things way before we see them in an academic context. Mm-hmm. And this is a perfect example of that. And so making sure that unified arts teachers know about the early signs of dyslexia so that when the kiddo who in PE can't do cross-lateral exercises or the music student who can't keep a beat, those are all things that we can potentially be bringing to our MLB team as evidence that perhaps we're going to see something around the reading development process that's going to run into some challenges. So it's super
really
cool to see it all connect.
That's great. Thank you for that. See, we're all learning lots of new stuff tonight. Thanks for presenting.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Thank
It's
you.
really fascinating. All right. So we're going to move along to committee reports. Curriculum, we're meeting in a few weeks. That'll be great. Community relations, we have not yet met. Policy, we did meet, as you can definitely see later in the meeting. Facilities, Mr. Colby, you want to talk about facilities?
Yeah, we did have a facilities meeting. We looked over potential projects for budgeting for next year. We talked a little bit about the ongoing work to provide access to the field, more graceful or lightly sloped access than the steep pitch. And so I'm going to the select board in a couple weeks to talk about that. So the back and forth that we've had for about 18 months between the committee and the town is about moving forward with that. So at this point, like, we're going to talk about it at the select board meeting in terms of permission to go. So that was kind of exciting news. And then we talked a little bit and just reaffirmed where we were at with technology from the technology side of the house, and maintaining all of the plans that we worked through this group with last year through the budget process. And that was facilities.
Awesome. How goes the progress of getting the boards in and all of this?
We don't have any more information about an anticipated arrival date. So
Okay.
they haven't told us it's pushed out again, and they haven't told us they're coming early. We do have, how many did you tell me this morning?
There are 3 whiteboards coming in.
3 whiteboards on the way.
All right. I know, right? All right. Gonna keep on keeping on. Wellness. Did we have a wellness meeting?
We did have a wellness meeting. We talked about the October challenge, which is about hydration awareness. And so that kicked off for staff and students on Monday. And we had so similar to when we did the joke of the day, we had a prompt in the morning on Tuesday, which was to share a fun fact that you learn about hydration.
Awesome.
And so students submitted about 200 fun facts on scrap paper to a little bin, and then we pulled them and shared them each time that we've done some announcements at the end of the day and the beginning of the day. And so students are, you earn points as a class and as an individual in terms of a tracker, and so you earn a point for participating and deciding you're going to participate in the hydration awareness challenge for the day. You earn a point for finishing the correct amount of water for you. And you earn participation points if you participate in the daily question or those learning opportunities related to hydration.
Awesome.
So that started this week. So that's pretty fun and exciting.
That sounds good. All right. Transportation. Do we have any transportation issues at the moment?
Well, 2 more drivers have been hired, and so we anticipate that Wednesday next week we will have another bus on the road for the morning and afternoon runs.
That's great. And it's not you driving the bus.
It is not me driving.
Beautiful thing. Excellent. And negotiations, we have met with both the support and the teachers, and we'll talk about those at the end of the meeting in our non-meeting. All right, so next is strategic plan updates.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
All right. So we've had some exciting conversations over the summer about how we're reporting out competencies, K-8, and there'll be some significant changes in the report cards, which are extremely detailed right now and include competencies and learning targets. And so we're going to be moving to a system that's a little more streamlined but still informative, and just reporting out on the report cards at the competency level. So several committees worked over the course of last year to go through all those competencies, make sure they represented what we wanted them to say about student learning. And just reminding everybody about the conversation around competencies being more than the sum of the parts. And so we've got, we still have the learning targets. Those are still an integral part around how teachers and students are talking about learning in their classroom and at the feedback level that they're getting in the classroom. but representing on the report cards progress towards the competencies that, again, are greater than the sum of those learning targets. And so we've done that in all 4 core academic areas. We're in the process of finalizing our habits of learning competencies and making some reorganization there around 3 main competencies. So that's been really exciting work, and hopefully it will provide kind of the right grain size for parents around not necessarily having a laundry list of every single learning target and potentially getting a little lost in the amount of information that provides, and focusing in more on 3 to 5 main competencies in each content area. The other big exciting thing that's coming down the pike, and this is really more on the teacher end of things than anything that parents or students will see, is we've switched our data warehouse and analytics tool from a product called Linkit that we've used in the last 2 years to Performance Matters, which is a tool that's integrated into our student information system, PowerSchool. And so it allows us to look at data in real time and integrate non-academic pieces of information like attendance and discipline, and be able to see all of that at once in the moment. And teachers don't have to log into another place. It's just right in their PowerSchool login. And that change, not only do we think it's a more robust product, but it's going to save us some money over the next few years.
Excellent.
So,
Whose chart does that go on?
mine.
So much.
There you go. I want to know whose thermometer moves at the savings.
She can take it.
All the help I can get.
Yeah, she's fallen behind.
That's too funny. All right, so we did manifests by e-sign, but now we can look at reconciliation? Or does Matt have? Oh, I skipped over Matt's strategic plan.
Yeah.
Matt, I can't
wasn't
even
sure.
believe I skipped over you.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So in
Better
terms of
reconciliation.
the 3 areas at the building level that we're working on, one of our goals is about strengthening relationships through parents. The first part is about within the school community using responsive classroom, but I think Kim nailed all of that in terms of what that looks like. So in September, we had a parent pop-in place of traditional open house, and the feedback has been really great in terms of parents talking about their ability to connect and have a conversation with a classroom teacher that wasn't followed by a pulling of an arm about come see my classroom when you got multiple kids, or check out my cubby. And so the parents and the teachers both reported that it was a great way to actually establish a connection versus to manage a classroom full of kids and adults. So that went really well. And I'm scrolling down. In terms of our second goal about integrating universal design into competency-based, in September at our teacher workshop day on the 3rd, we had time and we dug into the New Hampshire SAS data and the iReady data from last spring in terms of what was that sort of saying to us. And Taylor did a great job when she talked about on that day and that one piece of data. And so we worked in grade level teams to talk about what did we see as strengths from that data, what did we see as areas for growth, and what surprised us about those 2 data points. And so from there, we had those conversations, and then we switched to our vertical teams. And so essentially one person from each grade level team worked on a vertical team, and they had the conversation about one of those tested areas. And so we had a share K-8 about reading and writing, and we had a share K-8 about math. And so based on that conversation and the things that came through, they evaluated trends across the vertical spans and identified hypotheses about how they could act, change, supplement to move the data. So that was, September 3rd. So tomorrow and Friday, we're going to do the same exercise with the fall iReady data. So you have the next group of students. Does that data fit with the data from before? Is your hypothesis still the same? Would your action plan still be the same? And the work that we've done in September related to budget development has been, what are the budget impacts of your hypothesis? And so you'll see that play out in ELA budgets and math budgets, et cetera. And in terms of the UDL piece, because I completely left all that out in that talk, we're reading a book tomorrow called Itsy the Clever Spider. When I say we, I mean I'm reading it at the staff meeting. And it's all about how the Itsy the Spider wants to gather and hang on to all of the information he can because he's so clever. And ultimately, it really boils down to being about, it's not about all the individual component parts. It's about the big ideas. And the secret of successful education, whether it's responsive classroom, understanding by design, universal design for learning, is about having a plan and being ready to move and anticipating how to respond to student need. And so we're going to do that in a way tomorrow that is kind of relaxed and let everybody have story time for a little bit because, it's October and people are feeling like it's April. So we're gonna address those two things, right? Keep the work going, but in a way that, you only can with a children's book. So we'll do that tomorrow at our staff meeting. And then in our, the last goal that we're working on right now, the last one, it's a funny phrase for me to say, the last goal we're working on, because that's not entirely true at all. But the last thing that we're really spending significant time on is about aligning intervention structures with student needs. So do you guys want to talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a mic, though.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone.
So this year we split our MLB team into elementary K4, and then Stephanie is running 5-8. And we've really taken the last 2 meetings that we've had to do that audit that we had talked about. So we've been spending a lot of time talking about, well, what is our tier 1 interventions that we've been doing in the classroom? Let's look at tier 2. What have we been doing? Let's look through our data. And then I know we're not supposed to be talking about tier 3 yet. That's one of our later benchmarks, but we've been kind of brainstorming, what has been done, what could we do differently, and we've been putting in little notes. So we're almost done with that audit. We worked really hard the other day, and we've kind of really gotten through a lot of it. Can you?
No, we've been doing the same thing in our
Right.
private conversations, just really looking at what's been working, what do we want to put in place, how are we going to do that, kind of problem solving around like existing structures and what we can do to make some shifts to make some things happen for kids.
Right.
So it's been really good.
Yeah, and we've also revamped our data collection system for teachers when they make a referral to MLB, so that the information is much faster to get to all the team members so that their brains can start thinking about how to support these children as they get referred to the team, and then really looking at what are our gap areas, and in the moment, what can we do to support them. So yeah, we've been working hard.
That sounds really great. Is that it? That's awesome. Thanks, you guys. Do the board members have questions for any of our team? They're good?
Oh, one other thing I'm supposed to share.
Yeah.
We're here in the library, and we talked last month about how great the library looks and how kids are here. So K5 students are here once a week, and they started being able to check out books on the week of September 20th, and 812 books have been checked out by students in that time.
That's awesome.
And so last year, for comparison, 293 books were out in that first month of school without the library being open through the volunteer efforts of Mrs. Swinney and Mrs. Markworth. So the library is getting its use, and it is fantastic, and so I wanted to share that with you.
That's awesome. That is really good to hear. I love it. All right, so now I'll move on to the reconciliation. It's in your drive. Looks like Most people either printed it or have it in front of them. Do you want to talk about it, Jackie?
Sure, sure. Well, first, I am doing this because Eric James was born on Monday morning, and we're
New
very
babies.
excited for Chris, and I hope he's not watching, but it's possible he is.
Congratulations.
And the reconciliation is pretty in line for an October meeting. Our revenues are pretty even from last year. Where we're ahead or behind, however you want to frame it, with our expenditures is within that special instruction programs, and you'll see a different number next month. That we have some things coming against that line.
Okay, great.
And then going right into the COVID funding,
go ahead.
that really has remained unchanged.
Okay, so there's nothing that we
No.
need to deal with there. All right, great. Well, that's easy peasy. All right, the next thing is I have a resignation from Shannon Thompson that's in the drive. Is there anything that we need to know other than that we're sad? Yeah, okay. So I'll entertain a motion to accept Shannon's resignation with regret and well wishes.
Yes, so moved.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Just give her our regards, please. All right.
That's, our first meeting at the beginning of the year has got to have some effect,
Mm-hmm.
on how you're doing this.
I'll let Matt share how we've had a number of conversations about this, what he's doing.
So the first kudos goes to Mrs. Lori Gage, who has come back for a bit. So she, in terms of Taylor's shout out to Lori for jumping in and helping out. Lori has jumped in and helped out by covering those 7th and 8th grade classes. At this point, we've posted for anticipated science opening, and now that you've affirmed the resignation, we'll move forward with trying to get somebody in there.
Lori did say to me today, Matt does realize I am retired, right? Like,
We know. It's just you're so good. It's hard to let her go. Excellent. All right. So we're going to move on to policy with the board's approval, if it's all right for me to proceed with policy in the way that we have been doing it. So I'll kind of give I'll give a spiel, and then we can move it and then talk about it. So the first one is EEAEA, and this is a policy on mandatory drug and alcohol testing for school bus drivers and contracted carriers. This is not a policy that we had before. It's required. This really tracks the statutes, which are cited at the end. So it's not just New Hampshire RSA, but it's Code of Federal Regulations and another federal statute. So the basic idea is if you're going to be a school bus driver, a contracted carrier, you're certainly going to be subject to drug and alcohol testing, background testing, all of those kinds of things. This really just tracks the statutes. So what I will do is I will move that we adopt EEAEA, waiving further reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Questions, comments, thoughts on this one, you guys?
So this is the first time we've had something like this?
Yes, it's required. There was a number of policies that came up that we did not have that we have to have, to be in compliance. So this is one. It doesn't mean we're not doing it. It just means we didn't have a policy about it. Any questions or thoughts on this? Or are you guys okay with it? All right. So all in favor of adopting this, waiving further reading, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? All right. The next one is JLCJA, Emergency Plan for sports-related injuries. This is also a first time for us to see this. And so what this does, and Jackie's office gets charged with this anyway, is the superintendent's office has a plan for sports injuries, what happens, and this is one that also has the procedure to it, right? So this is we're going to have a plan. There's a procedure to actually what the plan looks like. The action plan goes out to not just the folks within the school, but EMS, fire, law enforcement, that kind of thing. Not particularly heavy lifting in terms of people need to know where the equipment is, who's in charge, who's going to take care of things in case of emergency. So should I review this in conjunction with the procedure? Do we have to? All right. Let me get to the procedure. So one above it in your drive if you're looking there. All right. So the procedure talks about, and I think I remember this really came up because of the heat issue, the heat injuries, right?
And it was extended to include grades required for grades 4 through 8, whereas I believe
it was just high
previously
school.
it was just high school.
So just so you guys know, this really came about. There were some injuries in the news, not here, elsewhere, where folks playing strenuous outdoor, like football, those kinds of things, kids got overheated and injured or passed on. So, you know, when those things happen, we see sort of an uptick in policy that comes our way that says, hey, we better talk about that. So in this particular one, you're going to see on the procedure is that we're going to have a policy about temperature, heat, and hydration. There's a term there that you may not have seen before, wet globe temperature. It's just essentially a read of how hot and humid is it, so how hydrated should you be, essentially. Student medical history, it talks about what's going to be gathered, and then return to play. What does that look like? So what I would like to do is I'll move that we adopt JLCJA and its procedure, waiving further reading. Okay. Questions about this? Comments, thoughts, concerns?
It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I mean, it's related to the statute. There's federal statute and state statute about it, so we're tracking that as well. All right, if there's no... And now we have to put this into play. All right, so... It really sounds like emergency planning to me. I knew. I was like, and baton hands to Stephanie. All right, so all those in favor of adopting this policy and procedure signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Okay. All right.
This is very specifically for athletes and athletic
Yes.
Do we have a similar thing for people slipping in the hall or?
Yes. So there's a different policy about just general emergencies and health and safety in the building. That's under a different one. Okay. But yeah, absolutely. All the emergency management pieces. So absolutely. All right. The next one that we're going to take up is EBBD, which is indoor air quality. So obviously indoor air quality has been a bit of a subject lately. We have had this since 2013. We're just updating it, adding in, making sure that we're complying with the statute and the code of admin rules. I'm not sure there's a whole...
Just a little bit of
tiny
change in the second paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And actually takes out some of the references and aligns it instead to the checklist from the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
The former one had very specific references that may or may not be pertinent. And so this allows it to stay updated as the DOE updates what they're asking for.
Excellent. All right, then I'll move that we adopt EBBD, waiving for the reading.
Second.
Okay. Questions for anybody on this one? Nope. All right, all in favor of adopting EBBD, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? All right. Next one is IHAM. Health education and exemption from instruction. And this one we have had since 2013 as well. So this is just updating. There's some new, a little bit of new guidance on this one.
The only change is in paragraph 3, and it requires a proactive 2-week advance notice of use of not less than 2 weeks when the study of human sexuality or sex ed is going to be taught.
Okay. All right. So I will move that we adopt IHAM, waiving further reading.
Second?
Any questions or comments on that one? All right. All in favor of adopting IHAM signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. We're good. Fast policy. Great job. All right. Old business. We have none. New business. The fiscal year 2020 Federal Fiscal Monitoring Report.
This is just following up. You received copy of a report from the DOE, and it was about our special education audit. There is a procedure that we didn't have well documented around time and effort. We're fixing that.
Everything else looked fabulous.
Yeah,
That's good.
so
Yes, you're in compliance with everything, which is good news.
it is good news.
This is very good news. Anybody have any questions for Jackie on that fiscal form? All right, the next one. Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
how is this reviewed? Who gets this and says you're doing a good job, or?
We had a woman from the DOE come and camp out in the conference room for a couple days, and she reviewed. We got her items as she requested them, and she reviewed things. She wanted to make sure our procedures and processes were aligned, and that we. So she didn't go through everything. She spot checked things, and this particular way that we were accounting for time and effort, we just have to clean up a bit. But we were okay. So she went through all the districts. It wasn't just Henniker.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. The next one is our October 1st enrollment. So that is in your drive. It looks like everybody's got a copy of that. So we are at 401.
401 with an
All right.
almost even split between girls and boys.
I see that. That is-
201 for boys, 200 for girls. That's pretty amazing.
That is super even.
But that is up from 388 last year.
Yep.
And
That's great. I was noticing that it looks like all the way down the line we have an uptick across the entire SAU. So
yes.
that was
Yeah, we're still
Below
below
pre-
pre-COVID.
right.
But
But I mean, considering
Yes.
that's wonderful to see. Anybody have questions on the October 1 enrollment?
How many actual classrooms? I see 40 kids, 48 kids, in grade 4, for example, 49 in grade 7. What does that correspond to in terms of teachers?
It's a great question to ask. So you'll remember when we went through the budgeting process last year, that small cohort in grade 4 was in 2 large cohorts for last year, and that we're using COVID money to put them in 3 smaller groups for this year to address learning gaps and loss, and that we had then the ability to have 3 classrooms per grade level. The kindergarten enrollment was the lowest that we've had in a long time. I say a long time. We did a little bit of historical analysis back to 2001 in terms of what was the enrollments. The tricky part for us in terms of kindergarten enrollments and the small number is that, remember, we're only a couple of years into all-day kindergarten. So the numbers are a little bit different once you get back a couple of years. But we had planned to come in with 3, right? Just like we have had 3 sections of kindergarten at least since 2001. But we only are running 2 sections of kindergarten right now, which has allowed us to keep the math interventionist this year in the budget. And so that's where we're at. 2K, 3 for each of the other grade levels.
All right. Thank you. Next, do you have anything else on
Ratification of
Of
the
the
MOU.
MOU? Let me just get to that. So we entered into a memorandum of agreement between us and the Henniker Teachers Association, just around the COVID response plan, that kind of thing. So I will.
It's pretty similar
It's
to
yeah,
last
it's
year.
almost not identical, but it's really close. It just says that we're going to maintain the response plan, and if we need to address that or change it, obviously we're going to consult with each other. It's a cooperative, certainly very much a collaboration, and honestly, it was very pleasant. I mean, everybody really came to the table and was just really quite wonderful to work with. So I will entertain a motion, I suppose, to ratify the MOA.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right. Any questions?
I am meeting with the support staff tomorrow.
Okay, great. So we'll see
to
one of
also
these.
have a MOU.
We'll see one of these again.
Yes.
Probably next month.
Yes.
All right. So all in favor of ratification signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay. The next thing on the list is FYI, the SAU board meeting on October the 25th. I'm actually really excited about this meeting, to be honest with you, because we get to do a number of fun things. So we do get to talk about the SAU budget, but we also get to talk about a little bit more in depth the portrait of a board member as a whole board. So the whole SAU board together, really talking about what does it mean to be a board member? How are we going to be effective communicators? How are we going to collaborate with each other? How are we going to have a good exchange of ideas in a way that is it's respectful and it's productive? And so it's a good time. There's going to be, I think, a few new people that we haven't seen there before. So I think this is going to be a nice place to showcase the hard work that we already did and kind of bring it home a little bit. So that's kind of exciting. What else are we doing at that meeting? I was so excited about that.
There was a lot on
There
there.
was a lot on the agenda. So we're going to talk about
Budget.
budget. I mean, the money stuff. But
Right.
yeah.
Is it at the SAU?
We haven't worked that through.
Yeah,
It'll
that
either be
may
the
be
SAU or here.
Okay.
I guess it
do
depends
it.
on how many people are coming.
Yeah, I think that would.
And if it was here, the cafeteria.
I would say cafeteria maybe. That way there's space to maybe be a little bit more spread out. Do you guys have a preference? I mean, since we're the first.
You'll be the host?
We're the host, and we're the first October board meeting that's really talking about this. So do you guys have a preference on where you'd like it?
I mean, the library or the cafeteria?
The cafeteria or the SAU, but it feels like
The SAU might be a
too
little
small,
close
a little snug.
for COVID times.
It's snug anyway, but it might feel a little too snug.
We do have different tables in there, so it's a little bit better, but it
It might. So what
probably
do you
not
think?
this year.
So why don't we stay here?
I think the cafeteria can be made so that we can be spaced and still do something. next to
Talk
the
and-
people. I don't know whether these things here will help or what. But,
Right. I think we can certainly make it homey enough, be able to have have a good connection. I think that'll work okay. Is that all right with you, Matt, if we come here?
I love it.
Awesome. All right. So I think that's what we'll do, is maybe meet here. I like that idea. All right. So anything else that I have missed on the agenda up till this point?
I don't think so.
All right. So public comment. Kimmy, do you have any public comment?
Thank you. This is my first board meeting observations.
I'm very happy that you got to come.
That you guys all got along very well.
Nicely. Kimmy's a friend of mine, just so that you guys know, working on her alt cert for special education. So you should.
This is my legal class.
You should talk to the lady next to you there. So that's a good connections over here. Special education is such a need for sure. All right, so
Right, when are you done?
May. I'm telling you. Right. So anybody have any reports or proposals for future agenda items? Nope. There's always so much to talk about, so it's hard to say. Do we need a non-public for tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So we do need a non-public, so that means we have to...
And it should be fairly short, so Sam, are you okay? Okay.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to enter non-public. So Kimmy, you can go in the hall and hang out and wait, or that's pretty much the end of what we're going to do. So
I can go home?
you can totally go home. I figured. You don't really want to stick around for us just to adjourn it in like 10 minutes. So I will entertain a motion for us to enter non-public pursuant to RSA 91-A:3 sub 2 sub C.
So moved.
Okay? Okay, so this is a roll call vote. Jim, what say you? Marilyn? Ellen?
Yes.
Deb? Yes. Okay. So Sam will give us the okay once he's put us into non-public.
Get your marks.
Okay, so we have exited non-public. Our next meeting date is November the 3rd. I cannot even believe we're talking about November at 6:15 here with our first budget preview. The next thing is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Oh, Kate. Oh, sorry. Hold that thought. I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for leave that we received in non-public.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Now, the motion to adjourn. So we've already taken the motion in a second. All in favor? Aye. All right. We are now adjourned. So Sam, you can adjourn us in whatever way that works.